Spanish wine laws. The key wine laws of Spain are centred around two hierarchies. One covers GIs and the other covers ageing requirements. There are four important traditional labelling terms that cover different types of GI. One is classified as a PGI and the other three are PDOs. PGIs are typically labelled using the traditional term Vino de la Tierra. These regions are very large, as can be seen by the area covered by Vino de la Tierra de Castilla y León. Next in the hierarchy comes the first of the PDO wines, Denominación de Origen, or DO for short. Nearly all PDO wines fall into this category. Above DO comes Denominación de Origen Calificada, or DOCA for short. Regions that have been DOs for 10 years or more can apply to become DOCA. To date, only two regions have been successful, Rioja and Priorat. Priorat is in Catalonia, where Catalan is the official language. Therefore, Priorat is labelled with the Catalan term Denominació de Origen Qualificada, or DOQ for short. Finally, there is Vinos de Pajo. This applies to individual wine estates rather than regions. Estates with a particularly high reputation have the option to apply for this status. Wines labelled Vinos de Pajo must be made exclusively from the estate's grapes and must be made and matured on their land. There are also four terms used to define the different age categories of Spanish wines. They are Joven, Crianza, Reserva, and Gran Reserva. While these words are only concerned with the minimum amount of aging that a wine has undergone, they also give the consumer a rough indication of the style of wine to expect. Joven wines do not have to be aged at all, and therefore they are typically youthful, fruity wines with primary aromas. Red wines labelled Crianza must be aged for a minimum of 24 months, 6 of which must be in barrel. Whilst primary aromas will still be important, these wines will also have some toasty and vanilla aromas from oak. Reserva and Gran Reserva are usually very good or outstanding wines. Red wines labelled Reserva must be aged for a minimum of 36 months, 12 of which must be in barrel, whereas Gran Reservas must be aged for a minimum of 60 months, 18 of which must be in barrel. In order to get the true benefit that comes from extended aging, which often takes place in new oak barrels, a producer should use the best quality fruit. Lower quality fruit does not have the intensity or complexity to stand up to long periods of oxidative aging and the aromas of new oak. Reservas will have integrated primary and secondary aromas and can have tertiary aromas of dark chocolate and leather. Gran Reservas are typically only made in the best years. They are often very complex wines that have pronounced tertiary aromas of dried fruit and mushrooms. These age statements can also be used for white and rosé wines, but they are not as widely used compared to red wines. White and rosé Gran Reservas, in particular, are very rare. White and rosé wines, labelled Crianza, must be aged for a minimum of 18 months. Wine labelled Reserva must be aged for a minimum of 24 months. And those labelled Gran Reserva must be aged for a minimum of 48 months. For each of these terms, the minimum time spent in barrel is 6 months. Note that the local laws in some wine regions require their wines to be aged for longer than the national minimum specified here. In this video, we have covered labelling terms used for Spanish wines. You should now be familiar with the terms used to describe Spanish GIs. You should also be familiar with terms used to indicate aging requirements for Spanish wines.